Hello everyone, my name is Mimi79. Today I've got some daily race C around Tokyo East Outer Loop. So we're here at Group 3 for daily race C, and I'm in the Alfa Romeo 4C because I thought that this car might actually be very good around here, but as you'll see just at the start here, it's got one major drawback, and that is straight line speed, because as you can see here we're immediately out of the slipstream range because that has very bad acceleration, and the gap is just going up and up and up. It's 1.3 seconds now, 1.4, and it's quickly going to become almost 2 seconds as we head towards the first corner. So this is the major drawback about the 4C, but as you'll see throughout the course of this video, it's a very good car if you are in the slipstream. And now is one very important thing to note, that this car is only really viable if you're in the tow, because I mean the problem with this car is it's really good gearing, but you really have to have a long straight to make the most of it, and also because of the poor acceleration you have to be very close to, say, McLaren F1 to really make the most of that top speed. But also, just before you really get into the thick of it, just make sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Also join the Discord server in the pinned comment, and I hope to see you there in the discussion. We talk all things Gran Turismo on there, so it'll be very much appreciated if you do pop in. But anyway, moving back onto the race then, just going into the back of Larry there, although to be fair I think he was going very slowly into the corner. Now going around the final turn then, I guess that final kink there is the actual final turn, but to be fair, in the dry it really does not make a difference at all. But anyway, this is one thing that you've got to notice. So we're in the slipstream of the McLaren F1 and we're still losing time. It's that good on acceleration, and to be fair it is in the slipstream now, but it is just ridiculous how quick that thing is in a straight line. Another car that I do recommend is the Peugeot VGT, because it is very similar to the McLaren F1 in terms of top speed. It's only down by about 1 or 2 miles an hour, and it's far better in the corners and on the brakes. So I definitely recommend you try it, because I did improve my lap time by almost a quarter of a second using that car in about 5 laps compared to the McLaren F1. So definitely recommend you use it, although it is very tricky to drive. You really have to throw it into the corners, as is the same with this Alfa 4C, which is also a very good car, because it's just so grippy through the high speed corners. I mean, just look here, look at the gap to the German behind. We just pull, what, half a second on him through that one sequence of corners, and admittedly he probably got a very sloppy run through there as well, but just goes to show how much better this Alfa 4C is through the corners. I do think it's the most underrated Group 3 car even. I was about to say Group 4, but that Group 4 Alpha is just so hard to drive that it's barely even worth mentioning. But as you can see here, 3 people serve a penalty, so we move up into 16th position. And as we go around the final corner, Derek could go very wide, and we are all over the back of Meg Zero in the Pug VGT, also known as the Wide by some people. But again, took it into the slipstream, and bear in mind we are on medium tyres, so if our pace isn't too amazing at the moment, then there is an explanation in that regard. But setting a 159.1, and yes, we did have the slipstream, but in this car, if you want to be competitive, you kind of have to be in the suck zone. Otherwise, you may as well just get out and run. It's just so bad out of slipstream. I mean, look at this. We're hitting 182 miles an hour in the slipstream, whereas without it, we were barely hitting 170. So it does make a huge difference. So we're going to take 2 for the price of 1 here and move up into 15th. But because of the Alfa's poor acceleration, I doubt we're going to get the slipstream here on Adept Cyberman, who is in the McLaren F1, like the majority of people in this race. But we've got Gr3 in the pug going round the outside, and there's not much we could really do. Might as well just tuck in behind and drop back down into 16th. However, remember that we are still yet to use the soft tyres, and we will probably have to pit in the next couple of laps to really make the most of them. So as you can see, they're just running a little bit too wide and hitting the wall, but again, it's not really a major issue because we have so much more grip than the McLaren F1, for example, through the rest of the other corners. And now we're going to look for a move on Gr3. We're going to pull over to the right hand side, but just run out of steam, and we're just going to brake early and let them try and kill each other so that we can move up into 14th. So Cyberman running a little bit wide there. We'll manage to get the exit speed, and we drop back down into 16th position. So this race is predominantly marked by slipstream because of the huge straight. You are going to gain a second easily if you are in the slipstream compared to someone who isn't. Even if you're in a McLaren F1 and the guy in front with the slipstream is in a McLaren F1, you are still going to lose a lot of time, which is why cars with very good top speed are very good here. So cars like the McLaren F1, the 4GT, obviously the Pug VGT, they're all very good for this track, as well as the 4C in the race. In time trial, you might as well just use the Pug or the McLaren, but in the race, if you could really hook it up, it is very good shout. So as you can see here, just bump drafting Cyberman because there's no point trying to overtake into this sequence of circuit because it's so twisty that, you know, if you go side by side into this corner, for example, there's almost guaranteed to be a crash, and it just goes a little bit too slow. And unfortunately, I hit him. I think there was a bit of netcode in that as well, as the servers have been very stingy as of late, to put it mildly. So I think they definitely need to be fixed as we go into the wall there. But yeah, they definitely need to sort it out because right now, especially with an official season coming up, as Thunder's there off the track, and they definitely need to be fixed, the servers, for the official season especially, because imagine top splits slot 1 and half of the lobby gets disconnected and 3 people get 400 points for basically contesting a halved grid. It's just unacceptable really that the servers are as bad as they are, but it is what it is, and you've got to try and make the most of the servers when they aren't completely dead. But as you can see here, this is your OCD inducing or triggering moment of the day, almost hitting the pit wall, and that was way too close. I thought I was going to smack into the wall and make myself look like the biggest idiot the world has ever seen, but thankfully I managed to get into the pit lane, and because I live life on the edge, I'm going to drop back down into 16th position, well 17th I think, because Valsalenta is going to storm past us in the McLaren F1, so we have to move to the left there because I wasn't sure if he was going to hit me or not. But the gap is just going to climb and climb and climb, especially as Valsalenta's has better momentum into turn 1, but it's going to be all about nailing this first kind of sector because, you know, this is where the Alfa should really shine, low and mid speed cornering. And in fact, I was actually considering Alfa Romeo for my manufacturers. We just skip forward here, and we managed to get the gap down to about 1 second as Valsalenta goes very wide, and he does lose quite a lot of momentum, and we are in the slipstream, but that McLaren just has far better accelerations than which we can really do. But the gap to Thunder's behind is 1.1 seconds, and just keep that in mind because the McLaren F1 is obviously quicker in a straight line, but he's not in the slipstream yet. And just look at that gap, it's going down and down and down as we do pass 2 cars and we move up into 14th. Thunder's now is just about 4 tenths behind, and just look at him fly. There's nothing I can do. I'm just standing still compared to that McLaren, and all we have to do really is just tuck back in. And now Cyberman looks to the inside, but I just cover it off and he goes into the back of me. I think that was probably my fault. I moved a bit too late, but we continue and we are in 15th position as we hit the wall there on the inside of turn 1. And I thought that Cyberman would go for the move here, but in fact I think he's just trying to not be directly behind me, which I do kind of agree with, because you don't want to go side by side into this sequence, especially when you've got a car that's so much slower in the corners, like the McLaren F1 versus the Alfa. It's just really going to slow you down a lot. So as we go into the 4th sector, then so much more speed than Thunder's with a pretty average exit, and as we go into the 4th sector, really attacking it quite a lot, and then you could just floor it really, as Valsaleti gets a very poor exit. And we're going to go to the right hand side, and are we going to be able to get the move done? Not quite, but we're going to follow Thunder's, and I was hoping that Valsaleti would just brake a bit too late. We just go to the back of Thunder's there, but I slow down so I don't gain the position. In fact, that actually kind of helps him, because he gets a much better exit, and he moves up into 13th place. But at this point we're just about to break the slipstream from Cyberman behind, but this is kind of the perfect gap to the cars in front for the Alfa Romeo, because now we're utilising the slipstream fully, and we're actually not losing much. We're only losing about half a tenth now, if that, and this is really good because we're a lot faster in the corners. So if we could just get ahead into sector 2, then that would really do a world of good, especially as we're going to break out maybe 3/4 of a second in sectors 3 and 4 respectively, as we go for a mega move on Valsaleti. Just braked way too early and had nowhere to go, otherwise I would have smacked right to the back of him and got a penalty, which actually happened in a later race I did with the leaders FX Nylon. So we don't need to go into that. All I know is that it was probably a mistake, but anyway, we'll stop going off topic and we will continue on with the race. So Valsaleti go very wide there, and we're just going to get the cut back on Valsaleti. We move up into 14th place, and it doesn't look great at the moment, but bear in mind, if we get clean air, we should really start to stretch our legs. So getting a lot of time there on Thunders, and he was on the top 10 times as of recording, so great stuff from him. So as we go through the 4th sector then, we've just got so much more grip. Now that could be down to better tyre life, but I think it's also down to much better grip, especially because of the short wheelbase. It means that you can really attack the corners. So as we go into the final corner then, just tapping Thunders there, and this is really dirty stuff, and Derek just puts Thunders in the wall, and I have no idea why he did that, because there was clearly enough space on the left hand side. All he had to do was just lift, and neither of them would have really made any contact. But unfortunately Derek has put Thunders in the wall, and that is very dirty indeed. So setting a 57.6, which isn't bad considering that we did kind of get held up quite a bit in the first half of the lap. So here, bump drafting Derek, and you might be wondering, why aren't you going for the move? Because I know that if I went for the move earlier, he would have just flown past me, but we're going to get the move done into turn 1 later on the brakes, and it just goes way too wide, and we managed to get the pass completed up into 12th position. So now it's all a matter of catching the train in front. But one thing to also note is that in the slipstream, obviously the Alfa is a really good car, probably one of the best cars for this race, behind probably the McLaren and the Pug VGT. But if you're not in the slipstream, and we just lost 4 tenths to that plane there in what was probably a flat out section of track for every single car. So it just goes to show really, we gained all of that back in the chicane, so it just really goes to show how much better the Alfa is in the corner. So I definitely recommend that you try it, especially on the handling circuit. And if you are in the tow, then it is also a very, very solid car of choice. But we're just not really gaining enough. We're almost or on the cusp of the slipstream, but it's just not quite enough unless we absolutely nail this final corner. So late on the brakes, really hooking up the apexes very nicely, and we are actually in the slipstream, but the Alfa just again really suffers with acceleration, and it's just not going to be enough down the main straight. It's Ollie there going into the pits, and that must have been some kind of error on his part, because I have no idea who would have done 8 laps on the softs, especially as they would die after about lap 5. So jumping him there in the pits, that is going to be absolutely crucial, because now we move up into P11, but there is a car in front with a penalty, so that should be very interesting, especially as the penalty zone is quite late in the lap, so we could potentially get past them into 10th position. But it just seems as though we haven't got the pace to do it, especially with the slipstream being so strong at this track, and the gap just opens up into about 2.5 seconds. But towards the end of the race, it's going to be P10. I think we did gain a position on that final lap from someone who rage quit, I think, but not a bad result given that we did get held up quite a lot in the first part of the race. But it's a very good car. Definitely recommend you try it, especially at tracks that don't have such long straights. But also, if you are using this car for this race, I definitely do recommend you give it a go. But leave a like and subscribe, tell us post notifications if you did enjoy. But take care everyone, and goodbye.